And then if they're helping you figure that out, that's the buy-in you want. Now, not only are they able to operate and know how to win and do all that, they get to go, I help build this, right? So let's go talk about, employee retention. Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest. I've got Andrew Almazon with us, and we're going to get right to it. Andrew, no one knows Andrew better than Andrew. So, Andrew, give us some backstory. Bring us up to speed. You got a great story. We want to hear it, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Absolutely, Rich. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto your show, and just want to say hello to your guests. I hope you're all having an amazing day. And my name is Andrew. I'm a ex-VP of People Operations for a media company. I have 15 total years in American business, serving as part of the American workforce. Outside of automotive media, I have experience in restaurant hospitality, high volume settings, and more recently, craft brewing, as you can see on my hat here. So outside of being a passionate professional, someone who's committed to kind of just personal development, figuring out my personal zone of impact, how I can show up and be valuable, I've taken all that experience recently, and in 2024, I decided to set about building my own private practice for executive coaching and org change consulting. And I live this kind of beautiful, kind of semi-chaotic life right now where it's at that precipice of like, hey, you've betted on yourself and you really believe in the vision of it, and I'm doing the work. But at the same time, you haven't quite gotten it to a place of stability to where you can say, hey, I can responsibly leave the W-2 life. So, yeah. And that's me in a little bit of a nutshell from a professional standpoint.
Oh, that's great. And it's important people, because everyone listening to this is, well, not everyone, but a lot of them are business owners, right? So we've all started somewhere. This is what's important. Okay. You're in year 1, year 2, you're like in year 2, right? You're exactly where you're supposed to be, Andrew. So no newsflash probably for you. People here's a great saying if you've never heard it before. This is just my method of encouragement. Okay. People overestimate what they can get accomplished in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can get done in 5 years. Right. So you have to understand that path, it'll come if you stay consistent, you keep working it. Right. And that's what you're doing, because you got the skill set. This is what's really cool about business, man. We all get into because we have a skill set. We seldom have a business set. Okay, we do what we do, right? We're really good at it, but the business part, no one really teaches that. It's kind of interesting. I had an MBA on, I think last week, and we're talking, and I'm just going to say this, like, I was shocked what she didn't know about business.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, you got all these initials and all, and like, you don't know like the reality of business, So I think I'd love to talk about that a bit. I want to talk like what you've done in the past, that 15 years working with people, because I'm always interested in that, because I was really horrible with people for the first 20 years of business. It was not my thing. I always hope I just hired people like me so we'd get along. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I wasn't that magic guy who can just make everyone happy and understand and have empathy and all that. So let's dive into that a little bit. Fill us in on that.
Absolutely. And Richard, you just inspired a thought though, when you said like, I just, that's what a great place to be, in a position where you can kind of stack the deck around like-minded people or characters of preference to kind of inspire kind of a great ecosystem. That reminds me of this conversation that I had at one point with an old CEO. I had to step in at the media company as an interim general manager for a $2 million, $3 million division. It's the video production and basically the B2B marketing division that focused heavily on video production and commercial ads. And my job at that time was the creative operations director. So I oversaw operations for the creative departments. And with the outgoing GM, I was given the stretch task for future progression to identify, recruit, and bring on the future GM of that division. And I remember at the same time, he let me know, you do have a task ahead of you. P&L is upside down, and there is a lack of a culture of accountability. The creatives of this division and the sales department that collaborates with this division, they don't see eye to eye. And to me at the time, it reminded me of my time back in hospitality. The front of house and the heart of house, the kitchen. That's like a stereotypical, it's an archetypal conflict that exists, yeah. Right? And long story short on that, the point I'm trying to make is I remember getting in there and I was excited. I'm like, cool, we're going to right size this ship financially, and then we're going to right size it culturally. 60 days in, seeing where the cobwebs were, seeing all the nooks and crannies, my hair is disheveled. And I'm like, oh man, one thing I told my CEO in our weekly meeting was, you know what, X person, I told him it would be a lot easier if you just let me just hire and fire and kind of just reset this situation right now. We could get so much done in a timeline that's acceptable to you. And he looked at me, and he was a person that appreciated moving fast. So I thought I was speaking his language. And I think I was allowing my frustration to justify, that's not who I was, and that's not how I lead today. I think, I just said that for whatever reason. And he looked at me and he says, this is just a good business lesson for you because you're driven. I see the excitement that you have. You're still kind of wet behind the ears. You're going to do this. You're going to be okay. But I just want you to know in any of your future endeavors, you're not always going to have the pleasure or the fortune of stacking the cards in your favor. You have to work with the hand that you're dealt. And I was like, just let me do it, dude. Yeah. But I get it and I appreciate it now. And what ended up happening was about a 17-month journey transforming the creative department in multiple ways, helping them reintegrate with what it means to be accountable, what it means to appreciate deadlines and still live in a world where you can be creative. That doesn't mean it's being stifled. We created diplomacy between the sales team, and man, in the time that I was recruiting, that was the most profitable that the division had been.
Oh, that's awesome. It's when you have to adapt like that. Again, you kind of got a double challenge because you're dealing with creatives, and I'm not saying you got a bunch of Monet sitting around or something like that. What I'm saying is these guys, they have to be creative, and I get it, right? I'm an artist, and I, all that, so I get it. And people don't manage me very well, okay? Because I'm like, that's why I work for myself, because I want to do what I want to do. But that ability, and you're right, my first 20, again, I had good guys. I was lucky. I would get rid of bad guys. You're no good, I'd get rid of you. It's real simple. I did that with other companies when I consult, same thing. I'm like, but I did start to make the switch when I started understanding the power of people in a business, when I started treating them as assets and not liabilities. So I'm like, okay, if I need everyone on my team to be an asset, meaning they bring more value to the table than they're being paid for. Like, it sounds odd, but me as an individual, that's how I always operate. As a business owner, I'm giving my customers way more value than they're paying for all the time. That's the principle that we operate by. But if I get that from my people, but like, okay, that sounds good on the surface, right? Oh, great, let's do that. Yeah, go ahead and try that. Okay, it's not going to be just you're going to say a few things and everyone's going to fall in line, right? You're dealing with individuals, you're dealing with issues. Like you said, you've got different departments against each other. And that's a real common thing. So I'd like you to kind of talk about this a bit. Sales and like your development team, right? You got a creative team. You've got the people who are building, creating, whatever that aspect is, they're creating the product that a sales team is selling, right? Like, how do you, in your experience, how'd you really create a dynamic between the two so they could actually function well and actually elevate, with both of them? How do you take them through that kind of stuff?
I think if I had to just boil it down to one thing, it was getting both departments, both all the individuals in each department to buy into the idea that it's worth taking a little bit of extra time to articulate what and why your initial thought or your initiative is important to that other division, that department. Never assume that they are taking it and interpreting it at face value. For a salesperson, they might come in, they might have just gotten through 15 calls. They might have moved 3 from warm to hot. They have just received an RFP from the production manager and they were able to send it off. That's a perfect day, right, for them. And in their head, currency is like activity, needle moving. We've moved this rock in multiple areas, and they see the financial benefit that they're bringing to the business and themselves, their family. And then if they go into like maybe the cave, the video production cave, what do you see sometimes? You see a bunch of creatives, you see the editor throwing a bouncing ball at the wall. You see, kind of the sound engineer kind of like playing with his maracas.
Yeah.
And what does a salesperson see? We're going to go bankrupt.
I'm getting anxious just listening.
Yeah. And the hottest salesperson is like seeing this what seems and looks like a zoo. But what's crazy and what's beautiful about it is the video production team, that's equivalent to them like making 15 calls. Like the RFP just landed across the desk and they're getting to send it off. But they're living in their zone of like impact. Their creativity juices are flowing. They might have just taken that 10-minute break after like finally syncing the audio to a beautiful freaking, shot commercial. So for me, it was telling salespeople, hey, if you're frustrated with what you're seeing, X, Y, and Z, let them know why that's frustrating to you. Hey, my normal of what success and productivity looks like, guys, is like I'm constantly on the phone. And then when I see you bouncing balls on the wall, like help me understand. It frustrates me. It scares me. What is happening here? Give them an opportunity to tell you. And sometimes, it doesn't work out like magically the first couple times, but eventually as people start to trust that like, hey, X, Y, and Z is not asking you to like out you or call you out. Like help them truly understand. Try it.
Yeah. Or share your maracas.
Share your maracas.
Right. Try this, man. Just sit there for a minute,
Yeah.
Like do that.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, I totally get it. And that's it, right? That's really creating a balance and understanding. What we started doing with businesses, Andrew, is I get business like, okay, you may have 10 different positions in the company. You got 40, 50 people working. You got sales, you got production, you got shipping, you got whatever, all the different stuff. I go, everyone should have a 2-hour-a-week rotation into these different departments and see what goes on. Because now they get aware of it, right? They like understand, they go, and there's a couple of benefits. First, you understand how the whole machine works and why it's important. Like now you're not talking smack about sales. They just sit around and doing that, or vice versa. The guy just throwing the ball, because that's what you think. Because you walk by, you see it. And all you're getting is that glimpse. You don't understand the actual process, right? So as they go through that, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know it's like that. That's what it's for, right? And they get this thing. But what I also tell people, business owners, I'm like, you might have that person maybe working on the floor. They might come in the sales department for the 2 hours and go, I want to do this. I could do this. Like you might have your best salesperson in the wrong position. Right? Like they came in just doing it, but like this could be their thing and they could thrive in there. So it's just a great way to expose it, but there's still a lot more work to do. That doesn't cure everything. Okay. But it begins the process of understanding like, hey, we all got a job and jobs are completed differently. It's just.
Yeah. And I agree, Rich. And I think that's the beauty of consulting, or if you have that ability as an executive or someone in a place of influence in an organization that has the ability to zoom out, you can see like to what you just said, it's never just one lever that's going to create the change. It's multiple things, right? Like it's systems, it's culture, it's diplomacy, it's how we handle conflict resolution. One of the other things that I think was really important, just to go back to your original question, that helped move this situation in the right direction was when I came in, it used to just be siloed work. The sales team would sell the product, they'd sell the value, they'd get the signed contract over to the production manager, production coordinator, and that team then would inherit the contract. It would be their job to interpret client expectations, and then a kickoff call would happen with just the video team and the client. It's literally the first time that they sometimes met the client on the creative side. So we killed that. We changed that. Moving forward, I don't care if it's a cold lead. There's always going to be someone from the creative department alongside the sales representative in each of those calls courting that lead. And it was a small shift, but it was still a cultural change, because at the highest rung, that worried the executive team. From a creative standpoint, if a creative is not plugged into their seat, editing, syncing clips, putting out work, that's a threat to the P&L. But what we had to fight long and hard for the benefit, to demonstrate the benefit of what it meant for people on both sides of the spear. Someone who could really sell the value, but then someone who could articulate the outcome, the end product.
There you go. Yep. Yeah, I was going to mention, as you're saying this, that's what it is. What I think a lot of us, again, hard charging owners, entrepreneurs, we're thinking about, it's turn and burn, right? It's get it done, sales, get it. But you have to understand, for one, your sales cycle. How long is it? What does it actually involve? But then the confidence of the client, when you bring the creative in and they're explaining that, because you don't really know who's on the other side of the phone that you're talking to, right? You may need that language of a creative to speak to that, because that demonstrates competence in the ultimate goal, right? And the outcome. And I love that you're outcome focused. I teach that a lot now, and understand what a real outcome is. It isn't, oh, we make this, they wanted it, we delivered it. Okay, the outcomes, they got the product. That's not the outcome, right? We have to think completely differently. Outcome is what it does for their business or their life or whatever. How does that change them? It's not, I got the product and it was made properly. If that's what you're thinking, man, okay, because no one inside your shop is going to be inspired to do anything, right? Because they don't understand. They're just, all they know is this needs to go out the door, right? Does that make you want to get up in the morning and come to work? So I can be another cog in the wheel and just crank something out, whatever level that is. So I love that you're talking about outcomes, because it's just something that's really overlooked, true outcomes. I use an example for people. I say, okay, we have all these things to do in the morning when we open. Say we have a lobby, and one of them's empty the trash can. Okay. Sounds kind of, inane, right? Whatever. Yeah, we got to empty the trash can. Well, why? What if you don't empty the trash can and it's full and it's overflowing? What does that do? They're like, well, it's full. No. When the first person walks in the day and they see an overflowing trash can in your business, you've just tarnished the reputation of the business. That's the outcome of not taking out the trash. Okay. Do that enough, what happens? Right? It's a simple thing, but you got to understand that all these actions or inactions have consequences. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's an outcome. So we start putting things in an outcome-based thing like you're talking about. It changes everyone on the team. It changes their perception. Right? It's really cool. If you can wrap your head around it. I know you kind of figured it out, but if you could wrap your head around it and go, start really little and do those things, because outcomes are way more, like I said, than A and to B. Right? You got to really understand that. And when you can share that with the team, just like when you're getting the sales to work with the creative and understand, it's the same principle, right? It's kind of that whole thing. So now that I ranted for a minute, when you talk about company culture, and is that part of what you did? Were you part of shifting a culture in a business? Was that one of your tasks?
Yeah, informally at first. And then it came to a point where I was like, guys, I'm really enjoying this. Because just to qualify too, Richard, before creative operations directing, mm-hmm. I was an editor. So I live and breathe as well. I was a creative. I was a creative that really appreciated policy, procedure, and optimizing systems.
And that's rare. That's rare.
Right.
Okay.
I was like, I need to figure out, I need to play with this and see where it goes is basically what happened like midway through my time there. So informally, I would do it as an editor. People were like, oh my gosh, a new standard operating procedure. I'd be like, dude, give me that thing. You don't want to read it? Let me study it. Then we'll go to lunch and then we'll talk about how you can implement this into your day to day, fellow editor. You don't want to do the digesting and then the figuring out how to integrate it into your multitude of tasks you've got going on leading a magazine. We'll do an organic round robin. So I started facilitating these ways to make it more palatable, make change more palatable, so to speak. And eventually I did it formally. I became the VP of people operations for the company. And I think it's a unique role because I had to advocate for it. It wasn't a role that existed. We had a VP of HR. And then at the time, a lot of VP of people roles were starting to spring up in media. And I started to kind of like look into it a little more. And it aligned with the aspects of human resources that I was more passionate about. I can appreciate, staying up to date with, state and federal policies and risk mitigation. But that wasn't the part that brought me joy. Change, leading people through multi-phase departmental change, and exactly kind of scaled up versions of what I was doing when we would inherit new change processes at the departmental level. But doing that for the entire organization became a passion. And then luckily, fortunately for the rest of my time that I was there, the last 2 years, it became my formal role.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a challenge anytime you're going to try to improve or change the culture, because it's easy to walk in and say you have a bad culture and then walk out, because that's what people do. Like when they tell you need work-life balance, I always tell people, oh, that's cute. You want to tell me how? I got
Yeah.
Like they don't have any
Yeah.
ideas, right? Like they can't help you. They just talk and then leave it. And that's, no one wants it. I don't like those people. They can just keep walking and go away. Okay.
Yeah,
You,
absolutely.
you bring solutions. I can get the world's full of critics. I can get all the critics I want, but we need to solve some problems here. So it's been a big thing that I've done, with strategic vision and things like that we start to put in place and bring them together. But like you said, it is, I'm similar to you in the way I'm a creative, right? Artist, all this stuff, but I do like structure. I like systems. Okay. I like SOPs. Okay. Cause I know the outcome of that. Back to outcomes. The outcome is there's freedom in the business. The outcome is when you do that stuff, people understand they have boundaries. They have expectations. They understand the consequences, right? Everything now is systemized. They know where the goalpost is. They know how to win daily. What's success look like in a day, a week, a month, a quarter, a year, right? That's what you're doing. When you build that, because now people can come and win. Doesn't everybody want to win every day? Wouldn't that be a great place to be instead of having a mystery job? The mystery job is when you come and you're just waiting to get something thrown at you from whatever direction, right? No one stays there. No one wants that. Okay. No one. That's managing chaos, right? That's all that is. Which is, I think that's an oxymoron. That's what they call that. But the whole thing is like, no, everyone needs to know, and that's what you're building, right? And that also causes a cultural shift. Right. And like people are happy. Like if they know, like, hey, I can come and do this. And if you help them, the other key, like what you're doing, I think you have them help you build it out. Right. So you're talking to them, you're taking them to lunch, you're going through this. Okay, well, how would this work then? You guys are your boots on the ground. So tell me, like, this is the concept. Can we apply it? And then if they're helping you figure that out, that's the buy-in you want. Now, not only are they able to operate and know how to win and do all that, they get to go, I help build this, right? So let's go talk about, employee retention. That increases the retention, right? Now they're going to stay there because they've been valued. They've had the recognition, right? You get their feedback is being listened to. So it's really cool. So I really like what you've done with this, because that kind of stuff for people, sometimes we get so caught up in the doing. Okay, getting this stuff out the door and all that stuff that we can't, like you said, take that 10,000-foot view. But it's so critical because it's such it's a I'm going to use this word, which I never used before, a change agent for, for the business,
You got to have the buzzword bell. You got to have the
that's right.
buzzword
Yes.
bell that
Yeah.
you ring.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Oh my gosh. First time ever. Yes. I got to ring the bell. So I've never used that word. I've read it too many times. That's all that means. So, I've never been a trendy guy, but there you go. Change agent. I said it 2 times. Okay. Now I'll never say it again. But you know what I'm saying, Andrew? It's just, I love to see that this is a focus you have, and this is what you're bringing to businesses as a coach, going and helping them, because I think too many people, I suffered 20 years of never asking for help. Okay. Never how do I make my business better? How do I keep people longer? How do I X, Y, and Z, right? So I always encourage people on interviews like this that you got to reach out, stretch yourself, and go find these person. Maybe it's Andrew, like you have these issues. Well, you might want to talk to Andrew. Okay. Bring in the outside eyes. He'll see things in a heartbeat. Okay. I do the same thing. Like because most businesses are doing all the same wrong things. Okay. It's not like it's,
Yeah.
I know we all feel we're special. Okay. But you're pretty much like everybody else, so we've been around long enough where we can fix this stuff pretty fast and we can see it. The whole thing is identifying these issues, these cracks, if you will. Right. And then you can get to work, because it's almost like from an owner, and let me know if you get this feedback when you're working with these owners. It's almost like that's like exposing their own weakness, right? Like they're
Definitely,
a failure,
yeah.
which they're not. How are you supposed to know all this stuff? Again, you started with a skill and you created a business, but you don't know anything about business. But look, you're doing $3 million a year. Okay. So you're doing something right, but now it's time to fine tune. Let's patch a few holes. Let's fix these cracks and really go to the next level. And you can compress that time if you bring on an expert who's already done it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll see it, do it, help you implement it. So yeah, again,
no, that's huge. That's huge. And I'll think of another buzzword so we can ring our bell too. No, I really resonate with that, Rich. And one thing that you said, it's like one way I like to reframe what you just said, and I've said it to clients, is all I'm doing right now is exposing you to what your current standard of success looks and feels like to you. And what we have to do for you to be successful is break past that. So a very practical way that shows up is you might have somebody, a small business owner, who they pride themselves of being like a glue, someone who gives back to the community, someone who harbors, a safe place for people who come and want to work, want to cultivate that. But they're horrible at letting people go, or horrible at holding people accountable. It's like all we're doing is we're exposing the fact that, hey, to you right now, success as a personal professional, as a small business owner, is being regarded as somebody who harbors, preserves, keeps people safe, but it's hurting your business not being able to have tough conversations saying, this is the standard, this is where you're at, here's the tools, time, and training we're willing to get you there, but are you willing to walk the gap? And then letting somebody go with grace. You can be candid and still be, respectful. You can not strip somebody of their human dignity. That's another thing I always have to tell people who feel like that. And it's also on the flip side too. I've worked with executives who, because they fear that things have been going right because of this current system that they have, and if they allow me to open the books on their tech stack, like, hey, let's look at your tech stack. Let's look at your department's P&L. Changing any of that up is, what is the standard of excellence that's being challenged? They've developed a system that works, that's humming, that's been running. And changing that is going to create chaos. But if we can focus on the outcomes, if we pour through that and say, hey, I hate to break it to you, you can consolidate $60,000 of your bottom line.
There you go.
And after looking at how your accounting team and your HR team is using their time, we don't even have to talk about reshuffling or headcount reduction, but we could save or reflow 1,500 labor hours. And this is a real change initiative that I worked on. And, when you reveal that, what do you do? Sometimes it's like, you have the data, and then you have to square that up with like, why am I angry about this
Right.
data?
Right. Well, yeah, it's a quick stab at the heart. They're thinking, because again, we can't forget there's a three-letter word that every business owner suffers from. Do you know what it is? It's a three-letter word: ego. Ego. They
Yeah.
suffer from ego, massive ego, and that's what you're confronting when you come and say that stuff. You're confronting the ego. Now, depends on the owner, right? I've locked mine away. Okay, I let it destroy my first business. Okay, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't do that again. That's one thing I won't use anymore. So I put that away. But I think it's like you're saying, it's really important. You come to these changes, but you're putting them in an uncomfortable position because in their mind, there's risk. Okay, you're breaking what's not broken. Okay, so but there is a good saying you want to think about too. Well, why fix it? If it's not broken, don't fix it. No, if it's not broken, you should break it. You should break it and see, okay, what really happens? Where can we go now? What do we have
Cool.
to do? Because
Yeah.
that we always come up with these great solutions. I mean, as an entrepreneur, we're all about solving problems, right? That's how we live. We love it. Matter of fact, we get addicted to it, and that's why our business kind of stagnates. We let all these little fires pop up, and we kind of like it. We don't create a system to fix it permanently. There's actually some weird, dark part of our mind that likes being needed like that. You like chaos running into your office telling you to fix something. We can't figure it out, right? You get kind of hooked on that stuff, right? And I'm telling you, and I've seen it over and over and over again. You bring in those outside eyes, and we'll set you straight. We'll show you. And then once you get the experience of it now working, like that 1,500 hours, you get that. You're like, man, what was I thinking? Like, why didn't I do this? Like, whatever, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, whatever. But now all of a sudden you're there and going, oh, this is kind of nice. What else can we do? Right now you start, the mind shifts like, wait a minute, if we fix that, and I thought I had that dialed in. Okay. Yeah. You start realizing you're not, the old saying, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. And as entrepreneurs, we're in our own building thinking we got this. We are the smart. We got the best office, the best chair, and the whole deal, right? But man, this is the ego part. You got to step down, create a little humility, and go, okay, who can do this, right? How do we fix this? Let's bring in someone to look at this. I don't work on my own car, okay? I don't want to do anything on my own car. I want a really great mechanic. I want to roll and say, dude, it's doing something. Fix it. And they handle it. They fix it. I pay them, and life's good. Okay, I'm not going to crawl underneath there and start taking things apart. Okay, that's going to end in wasted time, wasted money, absolute failure. Probably have to go buy a new car. Okay, right. So man's got to know his limits.
Right. It really is. It's like just having a boardroom mentality versus like the knight in shining armor mentality.
I like it.
Having a strong, a healthy relationship with the idea of a corporate village or a business village, right? Like it does take, some people say it in family settings, right? It takes a village. Some people believe it. I think there's value in that, but I think there's tremendous value if we're talking about it in a business context, like you said too, and leveraging people's strengths, not squandering the talent that you have around you.
Yeah. That's it. I think when you're really getting feedback, and I'm a Marine too, so I get kind of boots on the ground. I have that structurability and everything else, but I'm not a fan of the ivory tower, right? I mean, some of my favorite owners with large companies, I mean, they're these guys. I had one guy, he's a multi-billionaire, man. That man was he was at work at 7 a.m. Still, they have this ethic, and he's talking to people, and he knows everybody. He knows who's coming and going, right? I have another gentleman here locally, same thing. Like, he's that guy, man. You look at him, you think he's just like someone who works there. He's not, but he's getting stuff done. He knows, and he's in tune with everything. He's always learning, always doing the next thing, always checking his number. You know what I mean? So you get this, there's just a different mindset inside there. And you're getting that feedback from the floor. Sometimes not soon enough, right? We tolerate certain things, but again, that's where some outside eyes are a benefit. You go, why? How long? That guy's been here 8 years. How come?
Yeah.
Like, why? How did he get? Has he been like this for 8 years, or is this something recent going on in his personal life? Like, you tolerate this? So, right, we see that. But as owners, again, you're there every day. It's like, well, use the example family. Okay, well, I got 6 kids. We tend to overlook some things that other people would think, what are you tolerating that for?
Right. Right.
We
Yeah.
get kind of a little Teflon, we get like, well, we just let it roll off us. We just, it's, whatever.
Right.
But I don't know, that's a good analogy, but it kind of feels like it was.
No, we'll ring the bell on that one. That was good, Rich. No, that was good. But it's like no, like you said, like I kind of say that too in a different way right now, even in the restaurant industry or the craft brewing industry. It's like, dude, this thing needs to be improved, or like you just said, sometimes we get a little Teflon. I love the restaurant industry because of the rigidity of it. Like I enjoy like the room to like innovate and be creative and break the rules. But if there's one thing that I have high marks about, like a civilian job, the hospitality and restaurant industry teaches you, and I think it adopts a lot of the best practices, the culture of like a hierarchy and respecting the value of a hierarchy, and then knowing when to decentralize that command, but then also having an utmost respect for the system in place and why it exists and adhering to it, and working within that system to deliver something beautiful. In this case, great hospitality, a life-changing conversation that creates an intent to return for customers, things like that. Sometimes though, we get a little nose blind because we're so in the trenches. Even in the hospitality industry, you don't make it as a leader if that's not part of your DNA. If you're going to be locked up doing admin in the office, there's the very specific sort of balance. Just like in media, it was like having this balance of art and commerce makes you great. In hospitality, it's like you have to be a strategist, a taskmaster with your admin and organize, but you also have to appreciate the value that being and like shedding a little blood with your team during rushes, during chaos is going to create for you.
Yeah. The I've learned the hospitality industry as a term as of the past few years. I never thought about it, but here where I live, Beloit, Wisconsin, it's called Geronimo Hospitality Group. And it's a Hendrix company, and they created this, and they've got all these restaurants they've put up. Like downtown is like them. Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
like everything from high-end tacos to sushi. Okay, like we got it all. But you look at this, and I did early on, right out of the Marine Corps, I was working in the bar and restaurant business, right? For a short, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, I want nothing to do with it. Okay, never going back. All right. Maybe I was I started as a bar back, went to bartender, went to assistant manager really quickly. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is not my place. The hour, everything about it. Now, it doesn't mean it's not, maybe it wasn't run as well, but there was 10 of these places. Huge bars did that stuff right back in the day. And it's just funny because I'm like, and I still think about like, I have a massive appreciation for people who can operate in that hospitality industry. Right, whether it's restaurants, it's hotels, we get all that stuff here, right? And you look at it, go, it just takes, and that's why this VP of people thing that you do, it's very people centric, right? It's operational because you got to deliver, man. It's like literally hot food. You got to deliver hot food. It's got to still be hot when it hits the table, kind of thing, right? To make it simple, to understand. But at the same time, that dynamic, like I love to cook, right? Big up 5-star guy. I can cook, dude, but I will only cook for people I like. Okay, no stranger going to come and talk smack about my food. Okay, like I am not gonna do that. I'm not open for that. Okay, I'm hedging the bets. Okay, so
yeah, absolutely.
So I just have this great appreciation for that because oh my gosh, it's just everyone's got a stinking opinion. Okay, and a critique and everything else, and so I'm just giving a big whatever you call it shout out to the industry because man, that ability to tolerate for one, but also create an environment and an experience that works. That's the challenge, right? It's creating the entire, and it's all based on people.
Some
For
people,
the
man.
most, right?
Yeah.
90-ish percent.
Yeah.
Obviously you need good food or whatever you're doing, but but it really comes down to everything is people, unless you're McDonald's in Texas or something, they got no people, but that's not food.
Yeah.
So it doesn't count. It's not food. Okay.
No, it's so true. I mean, it all comes down to intent to return, in the hospitality industry and different. That's the beauty, whether if you're like a Michelin fine dining restaurant, they're going to focus, I mean, less on internal culture, right? It's extremely militant, right? Plates, like what you hear about or see like Gordon Ramsay do, just for the theatrics, it's very real. I've got colleagues who live the Michelin life. I'm not in that fine dining space, we're in a more casual fine, right? So
Right.
menu service, but it's chill. It's very relaxed. There's no uniforms. And you have to really master what in the industry they call the swan theory.
Mm.
Swan theory is something huge in fine dining, and they always kind of like indoctrinate their best to adopt that and live and breathe that. And that's just like, the idea, the metaphor of a swan or ducks. We look beautiful and graceful in the pond, but then below the surface, you break that water line, those little feet, man. Yeah. And it's always in pursuit of the presentation for the guest to preserve the intent to return. It doesn't matter, right? Like if you're having a bad day, if you're going through a tough marital things or children things, the executive chef and the maitre d' see you, swan theory, man.
Yep.
Get it in there. And it's just a very hard line, old school approach, and I appreciate it. I love it. I think we need a little bit of that in today's.
Yeah, I agree. You have to have it all. Okay. I don't always want a 5-star experience. If I want to go and sit on a bar stool at your place and I can order a little food and have a great craft beer, like, and chat with people, and there's a noise level that's like, this is energy, right? There's a different, all that matters, like there's a great thing I learned years ago that Starbucks, the noise level, the decibel noise level in Starbucks is actually rated at the highest level for productivity. Like having that amount of noise, you can get it and you can and I'd go there. I wrote a book there. I'm like doing all that. I'd sit there and just for hours and work. You're like, I like this, coffee's okay, but I like this. And but it was the noise level, cause I don't work in a silent room. That doesn't work for me. Right. But so I get it. Like there's all these different components to this experience, the kind of experience that you have. Right. And to use Starbucks right now, what are they trying to do now? Get everyone to come back in. Because 2020, they shoved everyone out. Don't come in here. Go sit in your car for half an hour to get a Coke or, a coffee. So I'm like, so now you see the shift back, a new remodel. I mean, and I'm just saying this from a dynamic aspect, how even these massive companies, they have to adjust to people, right? It's not just get it through the drive-through. Because in the beginning, when I saw the first drive-through, whenever that was in the 90s, late 90s, I'm like, you got Starbucks, are you kidding? Who's going to wait in that line? I go inside just ticked because I just want a black coffee, and these people take 10 minutes to figure out what they want to order. I was like, how does that place do business? Like these people, I'm like, where's the express line for drip coffee? Give me that.
Right.
But the whole point being, you watch these evolutions over time when you've been around enough. It's really interesting. You see them close 600 places. You see them do this. You see them remodel. It's really fascinating. But again, they all have a consistent, and that's the people, right? And I watch the people because, again, I've got this higher. This is what I do, right? We do business and we do this stuff. But you see them, and I see a manager change. I'm like, ooh. You know what I mean? And you see that different dynamic, and you watch this stuff change inside of a place. And it's really, to me, it's just kind of fascinating. I mean, I love business, so I look at that. But I actually don't, I guess I would say I certainly wouldn't be on your level because I'm going to sound like a jerk. Maybe I don't like people enough. Maybe I just don't like people enough. Okay. I'm just being like, I like them. Yeah. I love people, but there's just, you know what I mean? A man knows his limits. So I need to bring 100%. Someone else on to handle that stuff. Like you don't bring people problems to me, maybe.
No, and I think that's a testament to what you'd said earlier, and I believe that too. Sometimes I think the ego can be healthy. You can tap into it when you need, But yeah, like things like that, like me knowing my limits, knowing my gaps and understanding when I've got to bring in another subject matter expert, even if we're just talking hospitality, or I even do that in my consultations when I'm doing discovery with clients. I always lead with, I just want you to know, I'm not like my sales friends. I have a lot of sales friends and I love the sales process. But anything I say to you through this is not going to sound or feel like anything that you might hear from someone who's trying to make the sale. And I lead with that. And then I qualify that by saying, I'm saying that because we're doing discovery because it's important to me. It's part of my philosophy for good service to you as a potential client. You have to open the book, so to speak, on your problems, your goals, your aspirations. And I'll be the first person to tell you if I'm not the right guy. Because, we live personally, and this is just a personal opinion. We live in our society with with our health insurance is a business first versus a service to me. And that those benefits that we're afforded, right, are what they are. You still got to make a dollar, the people that are working and operating those institutions. Sometimes I wish that's how my medical consultations would go. It's like, hey, let's look into that further. Let's look into that deeper. But there's usually kind of like a sponsored medication that kind of gets thrown out first. Yeah. It's like, well, I don't know if I need that topical cream. It's just like I need crutches.
Yeah, right.
And then like a little bit of, can you just print out a PT thing? Like I'm down to just go the 8-week route. And then next thing you know, you've got a baggie in the pharmacy line with a bunch of things with like a laundry list of things and that's just me. I know that there's a lot of people that have different opinions, but I take that bias though. So that's my bias. That's my ego that I have. And then I project that into how I consult too, because I believe that I don't want to give you or prescribe a solution before I totally understand. And if after I hear you, I have a colleague that's in NorCal that actually works with women in their mid 40s who are working with like the third phase of their career. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give that book of business to them.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is it's the old adage that, listen, I'm interviewing you, the business owner, as much as you're interviewing me. We have to be aligned. I have to know I can truly serve you because, and I'll be selfish here, my reputation is on the line. If you don't succeed when I help you, who looks bad? Not you. I look bad. And I'm just saying, like, I know what I can achieve, but if I get the sense that you're not willing to do the work, or you're not going to assign me the teams that I can work with and get results, I'm not taking the gig. Okay, because that doesn't benefit anybody. Everybody's got to win. So I got to win. Owners got to win. Teams got to win. Like everybody's got to win in these situations. And if you don't go in it, if you're going so siloed, so micro, you're going to work on this one very little thing and you're going to ignore everything else. Everything's connected. It's that web, right? There's consequences to every action, good or bad, right? We need to understand that. And if you can't see that picture and see how I fit into that process, okay, I can't do it. Right. It doesn't mean there's not going to be other people I'm going to work with who are also coming in from the outside. Totally okay. Right. But like, we need to know that's a possibility or it's an absolute. Like, because it's the overall success that we're looking for. Right. We need the whole thing to hum if that's what we go through and that's the problem. Yeah, granted, if you got one little thing, I got to come in and fix an automation process. Well, I get it. I come in and do that. Then you fix the automation process. The line is back up and running. Okay, we get it. That's a different animal, right? But I like what you're saying because it's the integrity to be able to do that, Andrew, to be able to have that mindset and that approach in the beginning. I mean, it's not a sales thing. If it's sales at all costs from a coaching standpoint, well, first you're going to be miserable. You're going to lose clients. Okay. You're going to get, everything is going to go bad. I guarantee you. Right. So I love, and I know you're relatively, you're early in the stages of this, but your mind is there, right? You get it. You already get it. Okay. And that's a huge leap forward for you, man. So with all that being said, man, I love this conversation. It's really cool.
Thank you for the time, man. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been awesome. So, but I also want you to let people know how they can get in touch with you. They might need exactly what you're saying today. Might be in the exact same industry, all this stuff. But let's give them a way to contact you and make some additional headway.
Yeah, happy to, man. So you guys can reach me at www.braveleadershipguild.com. It's my website, always updating it. Even from a free value standpoint, just upfront value. I have a blog that I operate, so I'm always dropping tips for managers and leaders in the modern era. Just how do you just approach work a little more, more excited, a little more feeling like you can hit the ground running. I'm also on LinkedIn, but under my personal name. So Andrew Almazon, find me on there. Love to connect, as well as Instagram. You can find me at instagram.com/Brave Leadership Guild.
I love it. So here's a little tip I throw out there at the end. When someone gives that information like this, if this is your space and you need assistance in this, and someone like Andrew comes on, just at least go on and like either subscribe to the blog so you're getting the notifications and begin the education process. Okay? Because we know in sales, less than 3% of the people are ready to buy now. So you're probably in the 97%. So start the process. Okay. And listen to what Andrew's got. You'll get a lot more on this site. Reach out, do the discovery calls, kind of see that stuff. But I'm telling you, if you take that approach, like again, you've heard who Andrew is. He's got the integrity. He's really going to go deep with you on your needs. Just begin that process. And that's a free tip from me. That's all I got. Okay. So Andrew, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for the time. Again, I love digging into this. It was fantastic. And for everybody else, we will see you on the next STS podcast.
And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. Do it now.